Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's The Hookup on Music. We are on episode 58, and tonight is also our 1 year of doing this show. So this is kind of pretty awesome.
Congrats.
Thank
That's
you,
awesome.
thank you, thank you, thank you. It's kind of like, I remember something actually a while ago that, your brother said, which was like, just keep pounding them out until you get to over 75, and just keep doing it. And that's kind of the logic that I've taken. And speaking of that, I want to thank my guest for being here tonight, Chorizy from the 108 podcast. Thank you.
Oh man, I'm excited to be here, man.
Right here, before we even get started, a long time ago, if you remember, I don't know if you've ever seen this, Led Zeppelin had planned some concerts that they were going to do, and Bonham died, and everybody kind of saved these concerts tickets for good things. I have my unfortunate 108 live ticket from this year that I was not able to go to, and I didn't even sell it, but I still got the ticket. And I just wanted to show you that tonight, this is kind of like my own we're our own little private, a good time here talking tunes. And I wanted to show you that I'm always going to hold on to this ticket, kind of like that Led Zeppelin ticket, where that I missed out because I was getting sent pictures and good times and vibes. And let me just say thank you so much. And I'm also wearing a very awesome
I love it.
shirt tonight. So thank you. Thank you so much.
I have a Stereophonics ticket like that, or like that. The show didn't come through, and I was like, it was like a $10 ticket or something. I was like, I'm just gonna keep it.
Sometimes that happens. Me and some friends drove out to see this guy named the John Butler Trio, and we got out there, and two guys forgot their wallet. So then it was like, do we pay for their tickets, or do we go back, or do they sit in the car? It was quite the conundrum when back in our our mid-20s. But let's get started here. Before we jump in here, I'm going to pull up a couple bands here that I've always seen you talk about here. Fu Manchu and Sleep. And before we get to these two bands, this third video here that we're going to watch really quick, you mentioned this within the last 6 months, and really it sparked my my mind on something that I was just been a long time. Unsane, man. That album, I remember exactly when it came out. And honestly, because of you, I am now neck deep in it again. It's been a long time. I forgot that album cover, how cool it was back then.
That video like took everything by storm. And it was like, it was a song Scrape, right? Like where like it's just skateboard accidents. Like for like the whole song. Just like, it's just like a 2-minute video, all skateboard accidents. And like everybody loved that video.
The video was just, I mean, when you think back to it, I mean, I remember sitting, and I believe, I could be wrong, that it was on both Headbangers Ball and maybe even on 120 Minutes too, which I watched both of them laying there, watching them late at night. But the video immediately caught my attention, and this was a time period where I would see a video on one of these shows and I wouldn't even care anything else, and I just go buy the CD for the one song. And then I would either luck into an awesome album, or I would crap out into something that I didn't really enjoy much besides the one song. And then I learned that I should probably do a little more research before. This is back in the $14-15 CD days. You know what I mean?
But that was tough at the time. Like there wasn't, internet wasn't widely available, and like even internet being available didn't make music available. Not for a while, right? It's not till like the late 90s, really, when you get like Napster and stuff, where it's like, okay, I could go and listen to a bunch of stuff before I go buy it. And like, yeah, you'd buy stuff on a whim.
Yeah. I mean, it was really kind of like, well, I remember a specific situation where I bought the Buck Cherry CD because it had some tattoos on the front. The guy, I'm like, this is going to be heavy. And I got home and it was like watered down Guns N' Roses. I immediately try to drive back to Coconuts to return it. They say no. I then beeline over to a used CD store where they offer me 1/3 of what I bought it for. So within a day, I lost my dignity, the price of the CD. But you know that.
The used CD store, man, that was the place. Yeah, I've bought many of CDs there. Probably talk about some of them in a little while.
Yeah, I mean that's really kind of where you would get a lot of stuff. And actually, some of these bands on here, I would go there to try to find the shirts and the posters that you wouldn't be able to get other places, you know.
The
I mean, when
posters,
Action
man,
Is a Go
for
came
sure.
out, I mean, I remember that was another CD that I, from Fu Manchu, immediately went and bought.
That's one you could buy for the cover,
Yeah.
right? You see that CD and you're like, okay, I know what I'm getting into here. And you get back and you think it's going to be kind of like just some like skate punk or something, and then it's just like this riff heavy, just beautiful punk stoner medley of music, and it's just perfect.
And honestly, in my heaviness, that's kind of where I always would more. I mean, Black Sabbath was where I, which we'll of course get to later, was where I kind of got my beginnings, and then kind of branched out. But anything that would sound close like that, heavy, really heavy, but really not have to be super fast, more of slow and crunchy was. And honestly, you
That's
know,
definitely my sweet spot, man.
you
Definitely
know,
my sweet spot. That good. Yeah, you've got to have like the good distorted guitar, nice and heavy, but not like, but you could still discern the notes wonderfully, kind of fuzzed out a little bit, and then you got just that that thumping bass along with the, you know, a great 4 on the floor drummer, man. I like that. There's nothing better for me.
no, and I mean, you might have heard of this band. I think they were called Barren Plains. They had this awesome bass player, but I've seen them a couple times, and honestly, they did exactly what you just described, man. They really brought it, and it was, well, I think a lot of people enjoyed it when I was around in the crowd, you know. So
Yeah, it was that was a fun time. I miss playing with those dudes, but I did just find out that the one guitarist from Bear Plates, who I've been playing with for like years and years, he's starting a new thing. So like I'm excited to see what comes out of that. He's just a great creative mind. So I'm excited to, hopefully I'll be able to tell you guys about that soon. I'm not playing in it. I will be in the front row just drinking and yelling at him from in front.
which is always, honestly, that's such an appreciative point of view, because, you know, I mean, how many times have you watched these music documentaries where the guy's like, how dare you go off and be in some other band and not include me, Metallica, and they're doing documentaries. It's good that, you know, supportive is always,
Yeah,
always, always
we're
good.
too old for that shit now,
Yeah,
man.
yeah,
We're too old for that.
you're darn right. You know, once you get to this, you're not arguing. You know, you're just for a good time, and like you said, stand in the front row to have some beers. You know, but what we've I had you do was pick out 3 albums that, you know, that you like or enjoy pretty much. So let's dig into them and see what we have. Album number 1, which I think is going to be, let's see here, no surprise to, oh well, no, before we get to the, oh well, no, we'll do the albums. The Crow, Brandon
Yeah.
Lee, The
So,
Crow, The Crow.
so this might be cheating a little bit, but like I think what we were talking about earlier is kind of important here. Is to like there wasn't great access to like tons and tons of music in the early 90s. Like you had to go buy a CD, you had to go invest in the 10 to 15 songs that one band was putting out to find out if you were going to be into that. And I think what a lot of us really enjoyed in those early 90s was soundtracks. And I think that like that exposed me to a lot of music. The Crow album especially so, because it kind of went through all of the heavier rock genres all at once. Like it was like when in Matrix, when Neo gets like the thing in the back of his head and he just like learns karate in 30 seconds. Like this was like an hour of like, now I know every type of like rock music that's being put out right now.
Mm-hmm.
And like, this is really when, you know, I knew bands like Nine Inch Nails and obviously Ministry's in Chicago. So I knew Ministry, like, cause they're big, but I didn't really have a good grasp on like all the different kinds of industrial that were floating around. And like, you've got like Machines of Loving Grace on here. And then My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult. This is like the first time, maybe the second time I heard My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult. And I was like, this is my kind of thing. And like, I then find out, oh, they're a local band, you know, you know, and like, it sounds nuts now, but I'm like 13 at the time when this album comes out.
Yeah.
I'm like, really grew up listening to hip hop. So like, this is like, I'm brand new into rock music at this point. I listen to this, I hear some of these bands, and like, this is kind of where my love for industrial music starts. And like this, and my love for industrial music takes me on quite a fucking ride for the rest of my life, especially in my early 20s. So I like this was important, and like for those of you listening that aren't familiar with my life, which you probably shouldn't be, is I ended up working for Invisible Records for years in my early 20s, working road crew and running the office and things like that. So like it all kinds of starts there. It starts kind of with this album, really like falling in love with some of these bands that were on here. And what's crazy is I remember being on a tour bus and like one of the guys from Thrill Kill, Charles Levi, is playing bass on the tour.
Really?
So he's like a Southside Chicago dude.
Oh, that's awesome.
And like, so we're just hanging out talking music. And then the other guys like Buzz and I'm blanking on the two main guys from Thrill Kill called Come on the Bus when we're in like Milwaukee or something. And it was just like wild being like 22 years old. And now like these guys that like I fell in love with their music when I was like 13 are here just like shooting the shit with me. Oh. And it's just such a fucking crazy whirlwind that what was going on in my brain at that point.
Oh man, I could only imagine just you taking that all in, here, me just seeing my cousin having the Sexplosion album in his room, by Thrill Kill Cult was like, wow, what's this? You actually being on the bus with Thrill Kill Cult. That's amazing.
That was a crazy time. So I toured with Pigface. So like that's kind of like if you want to just touch every industrial band all at once. Yeah, that's the way to do it, is to just go on tour with them.
I probably should ask you that question before, because I mean I'm kind of familiar with Pigface, so it's awesome that again, another band like we talked about a little while ago. I haven't heard in a while, but you worked. That's very, very cool.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like I came out of college wanting to work in the music business. That was like my main goal. And probably I had done an internship at Victory. But I probably naively thought that most record labels had as much money as Victory. And like, so they do not. And so I'm like looking at all these places and they're all like, yeah, we could do unpaid internships. And it's like, well, I kind of got to live. And it turns out like Invisible Records was like 3 blocks from my parents' house, where I was like crashing at the time because I'm just out of college. And yeah, I just ended up working, like I would go work my day job 9 to 5, and then I would go work there from like 5 to 6 whenever I got there till like 10 to midnight, and then weekends. And like I ended up doing like 40 hours a week of internship, 40 hours a week of my regular job, until like one time they had a tour coming through, and I was like, you put me on this tour as anything, and I will quit my job and I'll just go do it. And that was kind of the start of me doing that for a living.
Wish I can go back. Those are great days right there. The days where you're like, man, let's just drop it. And
a lot of this gray hair relates right back to that.
Oh, stop. What would you say out of where are you going for your top 2 tracks off of the Crow soundtrack? Or are they all, you can't really pick it too? Some people say that too.
Well, I think if I had to, like, I would say After the Flesh is probably one of mine. But the Nails covering Dead Souls is just awesome. Like I listened back to this not too long ago, and I was like, man, this is just such an incredible album. Yeah, there you go.
That bass line in that song, again, and again, honestly, last week I talked a little bit about the Crow soundtrack, and then again, revisiting it with you. I probably listened to the song again. It's another song. It's been a while since I played it as much as I have in the last week, and this cover is a very, very good cover.
And you forget all the different bands that are on this, right? Like, because everybody has their kind of favorite tracks from it, and then you forget like the Violent Femmes are on here with like the darkest Violent Femmes song of all time, and then like Jesus and Mary Chain are on there. Like, I mean, like it's just like it's like banger after banger, and like I mean like. I don't think there's a track that I skip on this whole album.
No. I mean, it's definitely everything that you've picked here tonight, including our next one here, Black Sabbath, Paranoid. There's no skippable tracks on any of these that you picked.
So getting back to the idea of like I'm listening to all this rock music all at once, just jam it all in kind of it and try and take everything in that I possibly can. And then like I had friends who had listened to like tons of rock music throughout their lives and like would point me to different stuff. But like someone got me into Pantera and I'm like, listen to Pantera. And I was like, this Planet Caravan song is fucking awesome. I love it. And like, I'm telling my buddy about it. And he's like, it's a fucking Black Sabbath song, dude. And I was like, I should look into that. And I remember listening to Paranoid just kind of cover to cover. And man, like this feels like you listen to this album now and you like kind of like think through everything that goes on in this album, and you have to think like whoever was producing was like, don't do this, don't do this, like don't put this, like don't jam Planet Caravan into this album where it, like Hand of Doom, like dude, this is two different songs. Why are you just putting them together and just acting like it's one song? Like everything on the album is nuts. Like even like in War Pigs, which is just like an all-time great song, Tony Iommi's soloing and Geezer Butler's like, fuck it, I'm gonna solo too right underneath this. And it's like just like all kinds of shit going on at the same time. And you're like, how's that gonna work? And it works perfect. It's like it's one of those things where it's like this is where music goes, especially rock music just goes, there's no rules here. Just do it, try it. If it sounds good, it works.
That's it. And I mean, this album, as you stated, of course, War Pigs, Iron Man, those are the ones that get played. Paranoid are the ones that get played the most. But the ones I played the most are like Electric Funeral, Hand of Doom. And probably my favorite track on the album out of all the tracks is this one right here. Fairies Wear Boots. The lyrics to Fairies Wear Boots, I mean, being all of 13 or 14 years old and, well, smoking and tripping is all that you do. And what is this and that? And you're learning all this stuff in this cover with the who is this on the cover, holding the shield with a sword. We never really know. Is it Paranoid? I don't know, man.
So Fairies Wear Boots, definitely my number one track on this album.
Oh, so we're in the same.
I actually, man, this is a weird way this would come up, but I was on like the CHGO White Sox podcast, and they asked me like who my favorite bass player of all time was, and I said Geezer Butler, and like talked about the Fairies Wear Boots bass line because it's wild. It's like it doesn't seem like it should even fit the song, and it's out of this world.
I grew up in a house that was just blasting. My dad would blast this. I mean, I went to the store and I asked him if he could buy me No More Tears. And he said, you need Paranoid instead. And that's what I remember from the start of this. And, and more and more and more. But you're absolutely right. I mean, Fairies Wear Boots. And honestly, too, things like Rat Salad, these little intro things are kind of like, are they the prelude to Tool doing some of the little intros that they do? It's kind of cool,
I mean, you could trace, like if you wanted to just like trace every type of music that came out after this in the rock genre, you could go back and go like, this is probably influenced by Black Sabbath.
Yeah, I mean, you being a huge Geezer Butler fan, just his awesome see-through bass that he had on Volume 4 right inside, you could see him playing it. Bill Ward, again, I mimic so many drum solos, drum fills. Back in the day, I love drum fills, like those awesome around the whole entire, and this album is filled with them.
There's such a great rhythm section too. Like two guys that are like, a lot of times you get guys that are that good and you put them together and there's just too much ego to make it work, right? Like everybody wants to have their like awesome part all at the same time, and it's just kind of like, this is just a lot of shit going on. They played off each other perfectly for years. It's incredible. They do. I mean, and again, to lead up to your third pick here, I think just honestly another great album, which of course
One of the coolest things that I ever saw was when you showcase your tattoo. That we don't have to tonight, but that's when I was.
It's always available on the Sunday
he knows
Soak. It's
good.
always available on the Sunday Soak. You could see it there.
Yes, he always knows. I knew that you knew awesome shit, man. When you see a cool tattoo like that.
That's my first tattoo. So Soundgarden is a band where, like, kind of led me to everything else that I listened to. Like, I remember hearing Soundgarden for the first time and just being like, this is fucking awesome. Like, because it is, like we were talking about, like, I'm not necessarily like the speed metal guy, right? Like the speed of Black Sabbath is like my go-to. And Soundgarden's also another one where it's like, it's a heavy ass band, but like there's only a few tracks that are kind of fast, right? Like, I mean, like Drawing Flies or like Ty Cobb, things like that. A lot of it is pretty just like kind of like sludgy hard rock. And it's just, and like, but it still like gets you going. It's still like awesome, music that you get excited for. And I just remember, I remember getting this album. The first time I ever bought this album. I bought this album multiple times. So I bought this as a CD at a flea market. No cover, no back cover, just the CD. So like all you could do is just listen to it straight through. Like you're not looking at anything. You don't know what the names of the songs are. You're just like listening to it straight through. So this is probably the album that I've listened to straight through the most. And there's not a bad song on it. As I got older and listened to it, you just start seeing many, many more layers to it. And like when I started playing, like there was things in this that is just like, don't make sense to me. Like the time signatures, like a lot of bands do crazy time signatures, right? Like these math metal bands, they could do all these crazy time signatures, but to do a crazy time signature and it doesn't really make this, like it's not noticeable on your normal listen. It could keep a pop sensibility to it. It's just, they wrote it in that time signature because that's how it worked, right? Yeah. That's the best way it sounded. The tunings that they use on this are fucking nuts. Like I think Mind Riot, every string is tuned to E. Like it's just like crazy stuff like that. And it's not like doing it to do it or doing it because they can. This is what the song required, and they would just do these things. And I love that. And like, I always felt like they were putting absolutely everything they had into every song that made it to these albums. And like, that's just something that's just wild. And then you see them live and goddamn, they're amazing live. Now, the first time I saw them live, me and Beef almost got carjacked right before it. So maybe my like adrenaline was already up for other reasons, but two things that came out of that. Two things that came out of that is, one, we always listened to our dad from there on when he said, just park in the lot, don't go driving around the neighborhood. And the second was, we went to that show and I can still see it in my brain. We're standing there, it's in the Aragon, and the song starts. Not everybody is out on stage, and they're kind of like walking out onto stage. So Matt Cameron's out there first. They're playing Spoon Man to start this out, and Ben Shepherd comes running. There must have been something for him to jump off of behind, because they had this huge wall of speakers. He comes jumping out and just hits that first note, and that Monday I bought a bass. Like it was like immediate. And so like Ben Shepherd is always been one of my favorites, and this is his first album with Soundgarden, and that's why I kind of like, it's endearing to me, is like, this is when I think it changed into a different band, and it's a lot of credit to him.
Really awesome that you throw out to Ben Shepherd, because since, again, I've listened to these guys, I remember, again, Rusty Cage, all of that, Headbangers Ball. But again, very underrated bassist that doesn't get talked about enough. Even the way he holds his bass, the way he presents on stage, really, 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 really awesome. And I love this song off of. Another song is it with just different vibes going on. And I read a thing before earlier that was Kim Thale was describing the album as like their White Album, like their Beatles White Album. They got as you stated, a bunch of stuff going on, but put together, magic.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. It's a tremendous album. I mean, the beginning of Searching with My Good Eye Closed, when they're doing like the See and Say, even like it's just like a ridiculous thing, but like it fits that song just perfect. And like the way that this song comes in and everything, it's just like that's like the perfect production for a song like that. And it's those little things that make huge differences on albums and make you remember them and make you think about them.
You're absolutely right. And speaking of things that remembering and things to is Lollapalooza in 1997, a concert that we both found ourselves at. And this is going back to July 25th. Doors were opening at noon. Look at all these people who were there. What do you remember, my friend?
So I specifically, and we talked about this a little bit before, is like Korn not playing is very memorable of this. I think someone had meningitis. I think if I recall, like someone had meningitis in the band, which you definitely don't want to have meningitis on a tour bus.
Ooh, no.
That's maybe the worst place to have it. I do remember I went with Beef and a couple of our buddies, and I specifically remember the Marleys being on stage because like every member of the Marley family ended up on stage except for Bob and Ziggy. Like that was like it was like everyone. And like I don't know, maybe I'm just misremembering, but I don't think they played one original track. It was just like a Bob Marley cover.
And just this week I see this article and it says Steven and Damien teaming up for the first time, and I'm like, I saw them on stage that day. What do we mean first time? But again, that was very memorable.
Now Snoop, I was like I said, like I grew up listening to hip hop, so like Snoop was awesome. I was very excited to see Snoop. I had never seen Tool live at this point, and seeing Tool live was it changed me. I mean, it was awesome. Like I just remember being like, what the. I was telling people for weeks after, like, man, I've fucked up not listening to these guys for so long. I think I bought
the album. I had the album and I listened to Stinkfist and a couple of the other songs. But I remember I went to Carson's to get the tickets, and this is when Lollapalooza's going down. Not a lot of people are going. There was only 4 people there, and they pulled a lottery ticket, and I come up number 1. I was in the 17th. What does it say here? Row, like the 17th row. And to see Tool up close like that changed my whole perspective, just like you. Because I looked back there and I could see all of the big, huge bonfires that were going on in the lawn. I think that during that concert. And it was just looked awesome. Everything going on. It was packed. It was just really awesome.
Yeah. I think I want to say, and maybe I'm misremembering concerts, but I feel like Beck was a second stage act at this. Yeah, I'm almost positive because I almost think that was the first time I saw Beck, and like, but Tool blew my mind. I gotta admit, like, Devo was there, and like, I'm 16. I did not get it. I was like, what the hell is this?
See, and you know what's hilarious is that my friends who were with me were they're like, they were next to me saying, I had this Devo Greatest Hits CD, and these guys who were in the front row were all full dressed and the hat on, and I was just like, I'm watching Devo here in this 17th row. But again, this is a time period, and to answer Dog's question, the ticket was $30. It was $30 for a ticket. So I imagine even up in the lawn had to be 22, 23, because usually that's kind of how it rolled. Really cool.
I feel like we were in the seats too, because I feel like we were fairly close for Tool.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because I remember walking away going like
Lollapalooza, which if you got lucky to get these tickets and be that close.
We were at the Dominic's to get our tickets. That's where our ticket was. Like that's a different time. Like having to go stand in line for that. I almost missed that.
You kept some camaraderie when you were there instead of in front of your computer, going like, oh, am I going to get beat out by a robot or something?
And you'd always run into somebody that you're like, wait, you listen to this?
Oh yeah. But that was a good time. what we got here to kind of roll out here, number one, is somebody had mentioned to me that recently you were on the All Sports Scene podcast talking about UFOs and Martians. Do you, by chance, really quick before we move forward, have any kind of Martians or UFO themed songs that you enjoy, or a band or anything?
Oh man, I mean, I'm not as big of a UFO fan as I probably should be for being like
where I was really
big,
gonna go
big in aliens. But like, yeah, no, I like not one that I could think of, and I'm blanking because I feel like there are some really weird '90s videos that have to do with aliens, and like I wish I could think of some like right off the top of my head, but I'm drawing a blank.
Are you like, do you, because you said you listen to like Parliament because they played Riot Fest? Are you like a Parliament guy?
Yeah, and I was over there to see them at Riot Fest. I did not expect them to play Jump Around. That was pretty wild. But yeah, I mean, like, you know, George Clinton's still out there doing it, man. Like he is not young.
No.
I think they said he's like 80 and he's still out there, man. Like that's impressive, man. I don't know how you could do that. I'm just complaining at the beginning of the show that I'm too old to be out there playing anymore. Oh, space trucking, great call from the comments.
You played space trucking?
I love space trucking. No. I've never played. I've never played that live. I've never played that live. I would love to. I don't think
we do a crazy cover one time.
I don't think I've ever been in a band with someone who could
sing?
vocally handle that song. And that's nothing against anyone I've ever been in a band with. That is just a wild song to do live.
It is. One last thing we have here. I got 4 tracks here I'm going to play with a bass line. And we're going to see a real quick what you think of the song or the bass line or the band. And here we go. Here's number 1. Here we go. Alice in Chains would, yeah. What do you think about Alice in Chains?
I really like Alice in Chains, and I think that like part of it is if we look, and this is kind of a fun thing with me and my brother, is like we were both really into like all the '90s grunge scene, right? But I think there's really like 2 separate parts of that grunge scene, right? Like there is the one that fades more into 80s metal and into that. And I think like Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, Tad, they're a little bit more over there. And then like you've got like the more, you know, punk rock side where like Nirvana and Mudhoney and those types of bands live. And I even though I love Nirvana and Mudhoney, I always gravitated more to the other bands, the more metal side. I think my brother's a little bit more to the punk rock side of grunge, but like
kind of what I can tell.
That's the thing is like even within genres, like there's separation, and there's places where like you really find someone that you really like. I do really like that bass line, the bass line to Wood, and I think like it even sounds awesome in the acoustic version.
Oh, it does. It does. They honestly been really big into the Jar of Flies album recently, and the first song on the album, Rotten Apple, it's got this bass line that just sticks into my head. But I'm with you. I've felt the same way, that both kind of veer into those separate categories. So I agree with you there. Okay. Let's go to number 2 here. This is one that I'm curious about. Let's see if this one. Metallica's, you would possibly know.
I don't know it.
You don't know. You never heard off of Kill 'Em All, Cliff Burton's bass solo?
Okay, that's what that was. Okay.
The whole I didn't do deep enough because I don't want to get in trouble by the the clips that be. But yes, the whole song is Cliff Burton or Metallica. What do you feel about them?
I've always been a big Cliff Burton fan. Like that guy's just a wild bass player, man. Like that's just
bass. Like, don't you got Rickenbackers?
He does. He played the Rick. I searched high and low for a Rick that I could afford, and finally found one. I took a huge risk on it because I bought it. I think I bought it on eBay, and it was like could come and just be totally wrecked. We'll see. But it worked out. But yeah, Cliff Burton. awesome. And yeah, Kill 'Em All, great album. I'm more of a Master of Puppets guy. I think that's probably my favorite
Me too.
Metallica album.
Me too.
But yeah, like it's
going for something,
and it's nothing
here.
it's nothing against like the guys that followed him, because they're great bass players, but I think there's just a creativity that he had that the others didn't. And that's really tough to have. Like I wish I had the type of creativity that he does.
Well, I just think the band would have also, he was a vocal member as somebody who's got things done in the band, where the guys who came after him were the guys who played behind the other guys just to fill the role. So like if they were to continue, he would have been a guy who's like, we're not doing this. And they would have been like, well, I guess you're right. It would have been more of a three-way fight. But yeah, I'm definitely with you.
So you're saying if he lived, Load and Reload would have never happened. That's I think what I'm quoting you as.
Did you ever hear that when James was like, well, if Load and if Cliff was here, those would have happened sooner? And you're saying to yourself, you say to yourself, well, James, maybe some different stuff like Master of Puppets, more like you said, different time signatures. But I don't know if we'll be doing King of the Day or Hero of the Day or Mama Said on Cliff Burton, because where's his bass going to be playing? And I can imagine him going, where am I at on this song? But up 3 here. Let's see if we know this one. Here we go. Nope. Faith No More.
Oh,
Angel
man,
Dust.
I'm huge Faith No More fan. Huge Faith No More fan. I think Mike Patton might be one of my favorite vocalists. He is definitely one of my favorite vocalists of all time. I think it was Riot Fest a few years back that they played, and I remember my wife just being like, "What the hell's going on?" Because me and my buddy, who's like 6'7", are like dancing at the edge of the Faith No More pit, and it was just like, I love kind of everything that they've done, like every album, even albums past what is it, King for a Day?
Yeah, King for a Day, like, great.
Yeah, it's awesome album.
Yeah, I mean, and then what's the one year album of the year? I think
album of the year.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, there's a lot of great tracks on there. I think they have some. Speaking of space trucking, they have some amazing covers. Like to have Faith No More cover any song, it's awesome. They cover a man. It's like I started a joke.
I really, to be fair, now that you brought this up, I wanted, and I didn't want you to be like, what's this guy doing? But I wanted to name the episode Chorizy Like Sunday Morning for their cover. But I didn't want you to be like, what's this guy doing naming this episode? But that's where my mind was. So like, you like Faith No More, which is great, and their covers, Midnight, they do a cover of, what is it, the Midnight Cowboy soundtrack theme off of Angel Dust. That was my first tape I ever owned. Midlife Crisis is probably the song that I've played. I love that song. And I remember telling people when they were like, what rock star do you want to be? I was like, Mike Patton. And they were like, Mike Patton? You want to be him? And I was like, yeah, his voice is cool. He could do different things. And they're like, no, I want to be Slayer. So I'm like, all right. You be Slayer. You go ahead and, you do that. But
I love Tomahawk and Mr. Bungle, all that stuff, man. It's all fantastic.
He does really, 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 really good work. Everything he's a part of. Last up here, let's see if we know. Now it's too low. Motorhead, Stay Clean, the bass solo by Lemmy.
It was a little low. I
know. It was like Cracker right there. The song. It was low. It was definitely low. Yes.
But yeah, Motorhead. Obviously, I mean, again, the Rickenbacker, and Lemmy's just like, it's one of those things where I think it's so much personality and like the voice and the look that the bass playing is underrated. Like, I don't think people think of him when they think of like really, really fantastic bass players, and that guy is an awesome bass player, or was an awesome bass player. It just great stuff on on all these albums. And I gotta say, like, I was one of these guys who was like, I know a couple Motorhead songs, and like, but I would say I'm a Motorhead fan, and then like was like, man, I gotta take a deep dive into these guys. And when I did, I was like, oh man, I've been missing out.
First
I will tell
albums,
you,
no skips. First 3 albums. I mean, there's no skips on a lot of their albums, but the first 3 are just, to me, they could stand up against anybody's albums. I mean, they're just really, really awesome.
I will tell you a story real quick. I'm walking into a bar, got my Motorhead shirt on. Couple of my buddies are with me, and there's this big bouncer, and he's like, "Oh man, I love those guys." And I was like, I'm thinking he's going to actually talk about Motorhead, and he goes, Motorhead, and I was like, oh, what do we got going on here?
You just watch Boogie Nights. This isn't Night Ranger here, man. You know, this is not that, but that is awesome. That's great. Well, my friend, thank you so much for joining me tonight. You know, I hope you had a blast. I obviously did. We were talking so many awesome things. But what I wanted to say is I also have this right here. I want everyone to make sure that you're following, which you're going to share too, the 108 podcast. My other shirt here, baseball beer. I don't think I got it right there. All right, there. Been bullshit. Just awesome stuff. 108 tourneys coming up. Let's share some of the stuff here. You could.
Yeah. So tomorrow night, youtube.com/fromthe108. We're going to be doing the announcement of the 108 tourney brackets. So if you're not familiar with the 108 tourney, it is a gauntlet of Twitter polls, matching Twitter personalities against one another in White Sox Twitter. So that'll be going for the rest of the month. And then at the end of the month, the 27th, the night before opening day, we're going to be doing a show at the Ramova, the newly reopened Ramova. So we'll be doing that. So you can go get tickets there at removachicago.com/shows. Definitely won't make it up there. I hope, Tony, you could make it to this one. I hope you don't have to have a leftover ticket.
Yumper, we've already, yes. You will see me there. I will be there. And, you know, I'm like Tool in the way where like I watch every one of you and your brother's stuff. And when I come in the podcast, I might like just say hello. I'm still working on the whole typing thing. My my tweets are not great by any measure, but what you guys are doing, like I said, are just so positive. And both of you guys and My Sox Summer just promoting such positivity is just, it's awesome. That's why honestly things like this that we can do are, you know, I think are awesome. And I just really appreciate you able to come on. And before we go here, I just want to tell everyone out there, please check out some of the other stuff that is on the Sadistic Penguin Studios YouTube channel. Just this past Sunday, my main man, Magnificent Stan, did the Drafty Pod on fast food restaurants. Lots and lots of good food on there. I hit up Portillo's since seeing that because I saw the fries on there. The other show that I happened to do with my main man Yumper at the show, really, really awesome time. Good stuff. A couple weeks ago, we talked La Bamba. We've talked the Oscars. Next week, we have something really awesome planned. This week, we got more the Oscars 2024, so check that out. Check out the awesome articles on the YouTube, the Sadistic Penguin Studios.com. Everyone out there, thank you so much for taking the time out and joining us tonight. And again, thank you, my man, for joining me. And we will hopefully again rock out soon, and definitely at that show at the end of the month, because you know what? It's almost baseball season, my friend. And before I go, I just want to say, no matter what, we have a good time at these games, because you know what? No matter what, we could talk about music, we could talk about movies, we could eat a bunch of Cubans out in the field. I'm not one of these guys that is going to tell you I'm not going to show up because we're going to waste my time, waste my money. No, we're going to have some fun. So come out here, come out to the ballpark, come out to the show at the end of the month. And again, thank you so much, and take care, everyone. Have a great night, and we will talk to you soon. Take care.